Good morning, hello, and welcome to this panel discussion on modular construction. Today we'll be discussing the competitive advantages of using offsite construction, what are some of the challenges in the roadmap along the way to full adoption, and some real-world case studies where modular construction has succeeded in the MENA region. I'm joined today by 5 industry expert panelists to discuss this topic. This includes Mr. Riyad Basaibas, the President and CEO of Amana Investments, David Glennon, Digital Delivery Director of the Red Sea Development Company in Saudi Arabia, Matt Coe, the Director of Innovation and Winning Work at Mace Group, Wissam Hijazi, Director of Virtual Design and Construction at Elliston Project and Construction Management, and finally, Professor Campbell Middleton, the Director of the Langorook Center for Construction Engineering and Technology at the University of Cambridge. As moderator, I will be guiding us through the next 1 hour. We'll also run a Q&A in the last 10 minutes of this conversation. So please drop any queries or insights you may have in the Q&A box on the screen, and we'll get to as many as we can at the end of our talk. Before we proceed, I'd also like to invite you all to participate in a quick poll, which you should now be able to see on your screen. This poll will help us better understand your business needs in terms of modular construction, so please respond as much as possible. I'd now like to go around and invite each of the panelists to please very quickly introduce themselves and provide a summary of their business and their views on modular construction. I'd like to start with Riyad, please, from Amana.
Absolutely. Thank you, Neha, for the operation. Amana Investments is the holding company for Amana Contracting Group, and we are a design-build contractor that operates across the Gulf. 12 years ago, we entered into the offsite construction market through our brand that's known today as DoBox. And DoBox is a full delivery mechanism in concrete with offsite facilities both in Saudi Arabia and UAE. And we've recently launched DoPods, and DoPods currently is focused on providing bathroom kitchen pods, as well as future self-sustaining products moving forward. The company is focused on the Middle East with an outlook of the African and the Indian continents as well, subcontinent in the near future. Thank you.
How about David next?
Hi there, thank you, and thanks for the invitation to join this panel. My name is David Glennon. I'm the Digital Delivery Director here at the Red Sea Development Company. I'll tell you a bit about the Red Sea project. So we're a giga project, part of Vision 2030, and here to support development and growth of the economy here. And to create a leisure and tourism destination here within the kingdom, and as I say, by driving that economy, take away some of the reliance on hydrocarbons. So we're also setting some standards for sustainable development, and I'm sure we'll talk about some of that as we talk about these modern methods of construction. But we're out on the west coast of Saudi Arabia, about 700 kilometers north of Jeddah. And this is where I am today, and it's an absolutely stunning environment. We've got a number of hospitality assets that we're creating at the moment, a number offshore, a number inland. We've got an amazing airport being built as well at the moment. And my role is sort of 2 streams. One stream is to create the digital twin, and that is to help our customer experience. And the second stream, that's to make sure that we can get this project delivered and get some guests here for the end of 2022. So real drive to make the to get this project up and going in a sustainable way and to hit that date.
Thank you, David. Matthew, we'd like to hear from you now.
Thanks, Nia. Good morning, everybody, and thanks for the invitation to join the panel today. It's much appreciated. So I'm Matt Goff. I'm the Director of Innovation at Mace Group. Mace is an international construction and consultancy company, and we operate across the project life cycle. So we develop, we consult, we construct, and we operate. And we believe that gives us a somewhat unique view across how the sort of all respective bits of the industry can work together. Mace has been operating in MENA since 1998. It continues to be the source of great pride for our company, and where we work on fantastic projects with some of the most incredible engineering sort of challenges out of any of our kind of global portfolio of work. Such as, so we're working as part of the team on Untitled at the minute, where we've just installed the world's largest cantilevered building across a 7-lane highway, which is engineering not to be sniffed at, or projects such as the Opera District, where we're currently delivering 6 buildings that will be taller than the Shard as part of one development. So there's some fantastic opportunity. And as per hopefully the conversation will go today, lots of opportunity to do things better through adopting smarter, more modern methods of construction for us all.
Thank you, Matthew. We've just got Wissam back as well. Wissam, would you like to please introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Neha, and good morning for everyone who just joined. My name is Wissam Hijazi. I'm the Virtual Design and Construction Director for Legoisation in the Middle East. Legoisation is a Canadian-based company, one of the biggest in North America, and we're, our main specialty, obviously, it is design, build, operate, and maintain services for all our projects. So basically, we take care of the whole projects from an overall life cycle perspectives. Here in the Middle East, our focus more is on the consultancy side of things, mainly project management, construction, facilities management, and in the last 4 years, we have initiated the EDC services, and basically we look at what will be the best implementation strategies in order to fast track projects, in order to reduce the risk, in order to make use of the technology, whether at the design stage, construction, and even operation. Myself and my team's role actually it is to work with the clients directly to help utilize technology from our protocols, workflows, procedures, best practices. We always keep an eye on the research, we always keep an eye on the new applications, what's working, what's not working. And obviously the focus is how we can move from the big data to an overall digital twin approach, which can be utilized by different stakeholders, and obviously, to improve the time and the cost of deliveries overall.
Okay. Thank you, Wissam. Professor Middleton, on to you now.
Thank you, Neha, and good morning, everyone. My name's Campbell Middleton. I'm the Head of Construction Engineering at the University of Cambridge in the UK. I head a centre focused on construction engineering, which was established 10 years ago with a very generous support of Laing O'Rourke, the UK's largest privately owned construction company, with an aim to fulfil a shared vision of transforming the industry. We have 3 core pillars. One is education and skills, one is research and innovation, and one is policy and thought leadership, in which we aim to work with industry and government to help provide an evidence base to support the development of policy decisions. One key great success for the centre was 10 years ago we launched a part-time University of Cambridge Advanced Leadership Masters program, which has been very successful, and that's where we have current and emerging leaders from across the industry who come on part-time to effectively undertake an MBA for the construction sector, which is quite unique. And we have people from all aspects of contractors, consultants, clients, legal representatives involved in that. And that's really been providing the skill set for a future generation of leaders to transform the industry. In relation to today, one of the pieces of work we've recently completed for Syria, the Construction Industry Research and Information Association in the UK, was a piece of work looking at the methodology for quantifying the benefits of Offsite. And that's, I think, highly relevant to the discussion today.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. I'd like to jump into the discussion now. I'll start off by asking the one question that I believe many engineers want the answers to, but don't always get. Riyad, I'll start off with you, please. How does offsite construction contribute to the sustainability and the cost efficiency of a project?
Now, I will tell you from a contractor's point of view, and that's the angle that we take. And we've seen that over the years. From a sustainability point of view, the wastage is good 20-30% below traditional construction, because we do both. We do traditional construction, and the last decade we've gone into offsite construction, and it's a good 20-30% at the site, at the project. So and our project is really at the factory. So if you shift from a traditional construction to a factory-based construction, offsite construction, we reduce wastage by almost 30%. Another advantage is also the predictability of the schedule. So as a result, we're able to really have control over the schedule, much better than traditional construction, and therefore we're able to realize as much as 30% increase as well on the time element for the construction. So these are from the sustainability and the time. Now, there are other advantages that we can touch on later on, if you'd like, on the economies and the competitiveness of offsite construction.
Data you've just mentioned is, I'm assuming, from real-world projects that Amana has completed and delivered, and I believe one of those projects is an ongoing scheme, is the Red Sea project as well.
Absolutely. So in the last almost 8 years, we've constructed well over $500 million worth of work through our DoBox platform, the offsite construction platform that we have. Launched DoPods for kitchens and bathrooms, as well as other products, and these have done this work has been both in Saudi Arabia for clients such as the Red Sea Development Company, as well as Al Marai, and also in the UAE for such clients as the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company and Al Wasl Properties and others in the UAE. So it's through actual data realizing these savings and sustainability targets.
Right. I'd like to move to David now, since we are on the topic of the Red Sea Development Company. David, you're obviously using modular construction for a part of the tourism mega project, and I believe all eyes are on it. They have been on it this year. Could you please highlight what the applications are of modular or offsite for the project, and what it was for you as a client that made you opt in favor of modular?
Yeah, sure. So I'm glad you came to me after listening to Riyadh then. So I spent summer yesterday actually going out and seeing some of the product, and I'll be back out there in a couple of hours. So certainly from a sustainability perspective, it is, it's super critical. So if you look at the environment that we have here, you've got these like stunning blue water, you've got coral that's down there, there's many endangered species, flora, fauna. If we end up destroying that, not only is it just a bad thing to do, but it's also part of the destination. It's one of the reasons why people will want to go there. And anything that we can do to reduce the impact that construction is going to have on that destination, it's always top of the agenda. So that when you're seeing the work that's going on out there, you can see that there's a lot less people there. There's a lot less feet on the ground. There's a lot less requirements. You provide accommodation, provide power, provide all the utilities that you need to have a large workforce there. But as well as that, when the materials or when things come to site, it's not in raw material. A lot of that energy has been used elsewhere, and it's used in a controlled environment, such as in a factory. So when it comes to site and it's assembled, the impact that it's having on the environment is, just a lot less. But also like to build a little bit there on some of the points that Riyadh made. So you're right. It's not just about getting those getting those units to site. We've also thought carefully about the waste in the process. So we're continuously trying to drive lean principles, whether that's in design and construction. And by using technology and really understanding how these parties come together, we're able to collaborate a lot better. And as well as naturally sort of stripping out waste during the manufacturing and assembly process, we're also able to work with our consultants to design in a better way. So bringing in some design for manufacturing assembly principles. So continuously trying to strip waste out of the process will have a massive impact on the environment as a whole. But then also when we get to site, we'll have a lot less impact on the work that's going on here.
Right. So there are clear environmental benefits to it, but do you think now it's just a matter of more clients such as the Red Sea Development Company understanding these benefits and then going on to sort of consider modular?
Yeah, so I suppose part of my role is to is to look at how this project is being delivered and to look for ways to improve it through continuous improvement, or process automation, or anything that just makes it makes the projects more viable. And if we were to try and deliver this project through traditional methods, it'd be nigh on impossible. So we're really challenged to look at different ways to develop, and then also where we're trying to be pioneers in these new modern methods of construction, but also to sort of change this development into a more sustainable development process, or like internationally, we have to do things in a different way. So when you actually see what's going on out there on site, it's I don't know, there's not much more proof that you need than actually seeing it happen on the ground. But even just think about it conceptually, it just makes a lot more sense.
Right. I'd like to pause at this stage for a question that I believe Riyadh might be best suited to respond to. Riyadh, we have a question from a viewer. Do we have prefabricated or precast buildings for single floor industrial structures such as substation? And can this reduce construction time drastically?
Yes, so good question. So this is our Offside platform is a design-build contractor. So we do the whole building all together. And some of the buildings we've been focusing on have been residential and hospitality and schools, such as in the Red Sea Development Company for the projects there. However, we do have plans as well to provide full products through that platform, which could be in the future power centers, not necessarily substations, but could be the substation with the electrical elements within it as well, not just the civil works of the substation. So absolutely, as long as it is there's a quantity of it, because it doesn't make sense for one unit, a quantity of it, and that we can modularize it so that we can produce it in a factory.
Right. I hope that helps the viewer who asked the question. Thank you. Matt, I'll now move to a question that I believe you might be in a good position to answer. I wanted to ask you, as a consultant, what are the commercial benefits of offsite or modular construction that you really, are best sort of suited to talk to your clients about, and which are the sort of commercial advantages that they wouldn't get with traditional construction?
Yes. So benefits quantification is often difficult. Benefits realization, hopefully a little bit easier. I think it comes back to the conversation that we were just having there, particularly from Dave around, there's a kind of system change needed for our industry. It's not one party or one player's responsibility to make this happen. That we do need clients with bold visions and strong leadership. We do need suppliers with equally kind of bold visions and capability and capacity to deliver a new or a more advanced offsite manufacturing industry. But we also need all those other players and parts of the sort of process and supply chain to partake in that. From our perspective, we tend to see that offsite construction it's not cheaper, it's generally cost neutral. You still need to invest in the same products. You still need to hire a significant amount of labor. You still need to do everything that's required for us as an industry to get a site set up and running, and to deal with those unique constraints of the project. But it is more certain, and that's really important when it comes to the commercial aspects. So from a client perspective or a funder or an investor perspective, how important is it to actually deliver your program either 2 times or faster, as you can quite generally experience from offsite construction, versus a project that runs over, your cost of financing goes up, your cost of borrowing, etc. So there's a big implication there for the positive, for good. It does require more investment up front, and that's not just with your supply chain, but it's also with the project initiation, and you do need everybody to think differently. Generally, you need a level of design maturity ahead of sort of engaging the supply chain and the market. So, you do need to, you need to invest in order to benefit in this regard. But yes, when you start to reduce the risk and you start to improve the certainty, we feel the fact that, you know, something is commercially viable is very much sort of relevant.
The risk management aspect is interesting, and we have a question here as well that I believe I'll open up to really anyone. I think all of you are best suited to answer. The question is, how will modular construction change the way the regional construction industry works in terms of contracting and supply chain practices? So are we, for example, hoping that modular construction could be one way or one practice is clients to look beyond, or at least traditional clients to look beyond just the lowest price?
I can step into that. I think there's place for both traditional and offsite construction and modular. Where we've seen the difference, at least in our case, is the more remote the project is, the more logistically challenging and environmentally challenging, the more suited it is for offsite construction. And the more the project is in the middle of the city or is in a fairly easy place to construct, the less suitable it is for offsite construction. So our experience is that there is place for both the construction methodologies.
Yeah.
Can I just say something on that too, Nia, quickly? I think the term modular construction is a bit limiting in some respects. We try and talk about modern methods of construction, but we also talk about industrialized construction. And that's because I think as an industry, we're trying to do two things. We're trying to industrialize products. You know, we are trying to get more better quality, factory kind of quality and increased volume, hopefully at lower value. But we're also trying to industrialize our process. You know, technology is now enabling us to think about and run projects in a very different way. And I think those are two big plays that are perhaps slightly sort of, you know, more strategic almost than the concept of just a modular construction process.
Right. Speaking of technology, and this is a question that I think Wissam is in a very good position to answer given the work he does at Elliston. Wissam, I'd like to know, in your view, are clients in the MENA region more accepting now of technology of any kind, really, but also particularly, like our panelists have pointed out, modular construction or alternative construction practices? Have you seen an uptick, or do you think we need to do more to kind of create that awareness?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when it comes to digital engineering and utilization of technologies like BIM now, which is dominant, there's a lot of increase in the maturity level from different supply chain, whether we're talking at modular or industrial buildings. And we started to see this type of momentum, like, you know, exponentially increasing, because everyone started to understand the value of utilizing the data, the automation aspect of it, the speed of the work, the accuracy. And, you know, if you look at the tier A and the tier B contractors and the supply chain, this is a given now. And we started to see more people coming from, you know, mid to small contractors scale into this approach. Now, if we go back to the modular approach, based on what we've seen so far, digital engineering and modular, they work side by side. Modular is all about assembly of components, whether structural components, finishing components, or the MVP for the services and the system. And if we look at digital engineering and BIM, the concept is an object-oriented approach. So basically, we're not designing now any project using a standard 2D approach. We're designing from an object perspective. And this is where the big data comes in. So when you look at clients like Amana, when they have a lot of history with the prefab and with the pre-modular, they have the history. They can now optimize the information that they have from a design perspective. And this all goes back to a financial impact of getting a better design and a faster design. So if we move now to the procurement aspect, which a couple of questions they were talking about, now we have the opportunity to fast track procurement, because my objects are there, which reflects the assembly functionality from what is the material required, the finishes, and the final type of accessories that need to be within this part. So now I can fast track it. And then that information can go easily to the market. So we will have less type of RFIs. The scope of the design will be better understood. And obviously, you know, more competitive pricing with a more, if you want, sophisticated design. If we move to the construction stage, again, we're talking about the risk. We're talking about planning, especially from a modular perspective, the utilization of what's called the 4D planning, which is the connection of a 3D design with its planning program. That will provide a lot of added value from assessing the risk, assessing the constructability. Now we can run multiple digital simulations to understand what is the best sequence, where does the risk relies, how can I optimize the site. Riyadh mentioned that modular is best fit for projects which are outside the city. So how can I approach those type of approach where I don't have the full infrastructure ready? So again, we can go on and on. There is CNC routing machines for fabrication of those units, which takes information from a 3D model and automatically applies them. There is the laser scanning that we can utilize to get the right surveys on site, while we're like, placing the pods. That can support us on the installation and support us in the QA/QC. And obviously, this will go to a beautiful digital as-built, which can be very useful for operation and maintenance, and for digital twins if you want that in the future. So the opportunities are great. And yes, the market, we do have companies that are 100% on board, a full buy-in with the technology, and the others are trying to catch on because they started to see the value. And if they want to stay in the competition, this is the only way that they have to absorb.
All right. So thank you, Wissam. And I think based on the conversation we've had so far, I think it's safe to say that there is an appetite for modular construction to become more commonplace in the MENA region. But I think it's also important to ask if we have, as Wissam pointed out, the infrastructure in place to encourage it. And Professor Middleton, I'd like to get your views, please, on how we can have different stakeholders coming together to really sort of standardize modular construction, which is, like Matt pointed out as well, something we want to aim for as an industry, to have a common standard of what we're providing to the end user. How do you think we can go about that in the best way?
Thanks, Leo. That's an extremely important question. But can I just start by saying, firstly, absolutely convinced that this approach to modern methods of construction, as Matt says, or the turning into manufacturing industry from what at the moment is effectively a bespoke craft industry, is absolutely essential. And I think the benefits will not be cost neutral. I think there'll be dramatic improvements, not just in cost, but in quality and all the things we talk about. Part of the challenge is, I think all this panel are believers and absolutely recognise the things we've talked about. But my question is, why hasn't it happened? Why hasn't there been the uptake, considering we talk about all these benefits? And that's one of the questions the UK's been trying to address. We had a House of Lords review, a House of Commons review. We've got a lot of experts like Riyadh and David getting up there espousing the benefits and giving some occasional one-off case studies, examples of fantastic outcomes on individual projects. And yet it hasn't taken off. And we have a presumption in favour, is the words used in the UK, of offsite for things like High Speed 2 and these other big projects. And yet it's still inching forward. And it seems that the innovators and the occasion visionaries, and I think Riyadh talks about that, and a few industry leaders are out there pushing the game, and they're putting the investment in and showing what's possible. But until, as Matt says, we get it across the industry, I don't think it's going to happen. So my view on this is that unless we can actually measure these benefits objectively and demonstrate them clearly, then we'll actually provide the evidence that Riyadh's been talking about, they've been working on their projects. So that's the work we've recently done on coming up with a methodology to do that. And that was a real eye-opener, because what we found is we went out and we looked at one area, which was the offside construction of schools, an area where there are a lot of offsite solutions that are often conventional ones. And we worked with a large number of companies on 46 different projects across the country. And it was just such an eye-opener, because what we found is almost no one could really measure the value and the benefits of what they're doing in a consistent way. Everyone would measure cost, and program time, and a few would measure quality in some way. But first of all, they're all different, how they measure them even within a company, let alone between two companies. And then these wider benefits, which will really emphasise the benefit of taking a modular or manufactured approach, were just not being captured. So the contribution we've been making working with industry is to come up with a consistent methodology for just measuring the benefits of construction. It wasn't just offsite, as it turned out. We realised it was for measuring across the whole industry to try and get consistency. It sounds common sense, but it was really surprising how much we couldn't do by really capturing those benefits. And it's not just from these four primary cost, quality, time, safety, but it then goes down to wider benefits, and you start looking eventually through to the social benefits when the real benefits of a modern approach come in. So I think, to me, the absolute transformations needed is it's got to have a pull from the key clients who have the vision to just capture this and not say, I like offside. They say, we insist on it. And that opens up the question of how you measure it, what it means. But by having that drive, I think we'll have the same sort of effect as the introduction in the UK in 2016 of a mandate for the use of BIM, which absolutely transformed the adoption from just a few visionary trailblazers to across the industry. But there's still a long way to go. And my own belief is that that is what's needed across the industry internationally. Then that comes and opens up the other fundamental change of a mindset in designers to design for manufacturing assembly and design for offsite, not what's happening at the moment, where you get a unique, iconic design by an architect, but then the visionaries go and retrospectively try and turn into an offsite solution. You're never going to get the real benefits from that. We need to, and it sounds simplistically, I call it the Legoisation of construction. If we can get some common standards of units, sizes, and importantly, connectivity, then the industry and the supply chain will innovate to give the benefits. But we need the equivalent of the modular kitchens, where you can get 100 different solutions, but they fit to standard units and they connect in a similar way. That mindset change will change us from where we are now, which is the car industry of the 20s, into a really transformed industry delivering all the benefits we're talking about. And it can happen with people like you've got here in the room, engaging with the key clients to actually show the initiative to demonstrate what's possible.
So it really does, as always, end up, being the client's sort of prerogative to drive the transformation or drive the uptake of something new.
The client, but when there's so much investment that Matt referred to set up factories or to get your supply chain in place, no one player can do that, in my view. There's a will out there, and companies like Mason and the ones you talk about in Langerocker, and many that are starting, but you need the pull and the incentive of big government infrastructure type projects, because they have the clout to go from these single one-offs to a program of work rather than a project. And that's when the benefits really come in. So, and we need to provide the methods for government to be able to measure that value and also have the confidence to do that. And that's why we have to work. I mean, Matthew hit it on the head completely. As an industry and a supply chain, we just need a few visionary clients that get the message. And there are out there, and we have to provide that evidence to give them the confidence to do it.
And I'd like to build on Professor Middleton's point. It's both, I believe, the clients and the regulators collectively, as well as the rest of the supply chain. And that is a unique point with the Red Sea Development Company. The fact that that itself has the engineering capabilities and the authority to approve designs and approve the choice of construction methodology, that's allowed us to work collaboratively together. Our experience elsewhere in the region, where the regulators were not as open-minded and forward thinking, we were unable to proceed forward with the offsite construction like we did in the Red Sea Development Company and with other clients in Saudi and the UAE.
Yeah, so just to build on those points as well, we've also got convergence as well. So we have the capability within the manufacturing bit now, but we've also got a number of organisations that have implemented BIM. They've got GIS. They're starting to use data in a different way. You know, a lot of companies are going through some sort of digital transformation. And so whilst I hear that it needs to come from, I'm hearing someone needs to do something in order for everyone to go on that journey. I think that there's organisations doing this now, and if they start to align their visions and processes, and as Ria said, like collaboration, that's really the key here. That there's enough convergence now that I think that sort of like tipping point is there, and I think I believe that very quickly we're soon going to see people lead the race, and it won't be long before we see people drop out of the race. Because the benefits, whether they're measured or not, are that large. So yes, I think there's going to be a bit of a fundamental shift coming up in the industry.
What do you think, Wissam?
Yeah, I mean, again, we have a contractor's feedback, we have the client feedback. It's all about getting those projects ready on time, on budget, as fast as possible. We have a lot of, if you want, a complicated set of new projects that are happening in this region. From a client perspective, the question is, you can utilize whatever technology you need as long as the project is being submitted with the qualities and within the budget constraints, which we have. Obviously, if we as a specialist, with the help of the supply chain, we have a solution and we have an open-minded clients, then basically, we have the perfect marriage between the support and obviously, the technologies and the, applications in order to respond. The biggest challenge here is, and I think Professor Campbell mentioned that, not every single project is applicable for modular. I don't think we've talked about this. There's a hybrid solution, obviously. So we can have a stick-built projects where we can just have maybe the facade being done in a prefab option. Or, as Riyad mentioned, the toilets alone as a specific entities, or a customized, maybe just a bunch of a mechanical system that goes into the public corridors of a building. So this also can cover a different aspect of the design. Technically speaking, when you say modular, people think of specific boxes, maybe schools, clinics, hospitals, small residential areas. But I think the opportunities are even above and beyond. We can do modular on high rise. We can have facade. We can have specific areas, electrical system, plant rooms, mechanical rooms. We can assemble a full bunch of, let's say, an air handling unit with the rest of the components, the pumps, the valves, and the main connections on a skid or two skids, and maybe using tower crane or special high tonnage cranes. We can have an assemble of those. So the added value is different as long as the technology is there and the support from the supply chain is available. So we need to keep an open eye. Doesn't have to be a full box. It can be a combination, and it can be a hybrid solution, or just kind of like interaction between panels and the stick builds as well.
Right. So it's about staying flexible and keeping an open mind.
Staying flexible, keeping that open mind as well.
Yes, Matt.
I just wanted to say, I completely agree with Wissam there. We've started measuring something in the UK, which we call pre-manufactured value. And essentially, we're trying to assess how much of the total value of a construction project has been delivered or enabled through that kind of off-site manufacturing approach of systems and sub-assemblies rather than the sort of building in its entirety. And it's really useful just to have a kind of single metric that gives you a flavour for how industrialised that project is, and we're starting to try and promote that a bit more widely outside of the UK, because we all believe that the more pre-manufactured value, the more of those other benefits that we've been talking about thus far, you're able to unlock.
Yep, that's true.
On Matthew's point there, imagine, and that's where we come through with Dubox, and then that's the vision that we talk to our clients. Imagine if you're fully modular, and that's where we have or industrialized construction, as Matthew said, with Dubox, imagine the advantages. In the future, you can relocate the building. You can scale up and scale down depending on the demand of the market. I mean, our proof of concept for ADNOC was putting a villa in the middle of a congested compound that they have in Ruwais. And our footprint there was only 14 days for a 6-bedroom concrete villa. So these are the kinds of game-changing advantages, if we get it right as a sector and supply chain, that we can realize with industrialized construction or offsite construction.
Okay. Yes, Professor.
I'd like to ask a question to the panel. Do you think it's realistic for the industry, the key players, both clients and contractors and providers of these manufactured systems, to get together and work together to agree on this effectively standardisation, both of dimensions, connectivity and the regulation that Riyad mentions, which is critical? Because that to me seems to be the game changer that will open up the industry.
Absolutely. I mean, the way we see it, we're almost at the Betamax VHS, if you want. No, we're not even there yet. and certainly if we standardize, absolutely. Because right now what we're doing is we're re-engineering the process itself by shifting it off-site. But we're not really optimizing the economies of scale that can be realized when the interfaces are standardized, like the electronic industry has done, for example, for its own outputs. Absolutely.
Then I'd like to work with anyone, because that's what we're really pushing over here. This concept of platforms, but they can't be unique. We have to work together and let each company add the innovation and value added from their own perspective, but we've got to work together. And we need to convince the designers and the architects that you can still make extraordinary structures, but underneath there might be some fairly basic standard components that can still give them the flexibility.
And we can probably.
I see Wissam wanted to say.
One really brief one, but I think we can build on the existing standards that are out there. I mean, there's many standards that already tie into this. So if we can build on those, I don't think it's such a big piece of work. If we're going to try and write something brand new, that's 10 years and the opportunity's gone. Sorry, Wissam.
No, please, that's a good point, because what I wanted to add is we're talking about clients, standards, and design. The biggest question now is, one of the most important items to have a successful modular project is getting the client to freeze the design, to approve the design, to get all the materials ready way ahead of time. And I see a lot of smiling faces here, because this is a big challenge, whether stick-built or we're talking modular, because Riyad cannot start working on his modular until he has a sign-off for the nuts and the bolts and the skirting and for every single accessory. This is what's driving his procurement, what's driving his plant. So this is a key aspect where it's maybe part of a mindset of clients working with designers, with the support of regulations, standards. Maybe you can have the modular contractor being involved in kind of like a design assist while the design is still under conceptual or still under feasibility analysis, because there's certain constraints which have to be met from a modular perspective. But this is something that the client need to meet us kind of like somewhere. It's like, okay, I know there's a window of opportunities, but we're freezing the design, we're freezing the structure. Mr. Contractor, start building so that we can do the villa in 14 days or whatever. This is an item which I think it's still not mature enough. It needs more discussion with the client. We need the feedback from the client. How can we achieve this? And what's expected from us as specialty and supply chain to support the client in faster decision making. And maybe this goes back to my first point about technology. Now we have the virtual reality tools where we can envision the whole design in a virtual reality environment. Basically, you can get the end user in a more scale one-to-one immersed experience, so it might affect the decision making faster. You can now do, our tools are sophisticated enough to model it and maybe render it in a very accurate position. So it should supply that faster decision making, but we still have to work together with the clients to minimize this gap between the approval so that supply chain can work faster.
Right. Yes, Mark.
Just one build on that, really. I think the importance of the client and changing from what a client wants to do to what a client needs to do. So, we all know inherently within our industry there's a huge amount of waste. And Dave's already articulated it this morning about the absolute need to change the delivery process in order to best respond to environmental challenges, the climate, etc. We're witnessing a complete paradigm shift in the industry, and it's not because of technology or offsite construction, it's because of the climate emergency. We've had a horrific 10 years in terms of devastating climate impacts and events, and we've got 10 years to probably enact the most profound transformation that we need to do in order to address the livability and viability of this planet for the next 100 or 200 years. So we're certainly, for the bold clients, we're witnessing a complete reconsideration of what's important. And there is obviously the need to design efficient, like good buildings that people want to live or work or enjoy in. But equally, there's a much more kind of responsible requirement from our clients as well. So there's a lot more interest in how can I make my construction process more efficient? How can I reduce waste? How can I protect people? One of the things we've done at Mace is we industrialised the process and created these things called jump factories that we used to build 2 residential towers that provided an on-site factory kind of environment in which people could build. That's massively applicable in the region, in the Gulf region, right? Because the temperature keeps going up, and for every 1 degree that our temperature kind of increases, that's displacing 1 billion people. So I think there's we absolutely need to recognise that the big transformation and the change is being driven by, I guess, forces outside of our control, be it technology, be it offsite construction, etc. But we as an industry absolutely need to have a credible response to that.
Right. We have some questions from our viewers, one of which is, in terms of common specification, are governments doing enough to coordinate on design codes and building standards? For example, the US versus the UK versus Australia versus Europe, and of course the MENA region. Would anyone like to comment? Professor?
Reluctant to get into the national standardisation. If you see what it took to get the Eurocodes to work, I don't personally think that's such a difference. The building doesn't know whether it's in America, the UK, Australia. It's got to stand up. There are different nuances. Designers know how to use it. I don't personally think that that's critical, but then some of the contractors and consultants might feel differently. I think far more important is the ability to be able to measure and quantify. As Lord Kelvin always said, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. To answer these questions that Matt, Riyad and Wissam and David have talked about, firstly on the value of what we do, we need to be able to consistently and objectively measure. And secondly, absolutely what Matt says is key. Carbon is at the bottom of everything. At the moment, we haven't got a way of including that in the procurement, in the evaluation process. So what we're working on is just that. And I would contend that it doesn't matter that it's right, because we'll never get something that's exactly right, but it's got to be consistent and accepted so that we're all on the same playing field. What I'd like to see is that these key clients will procure in a way that, one, not only incentivises but requires the modern methods of construction, because we will have demonstrated the benefit, but two, procures on a requirement for the carbon reduction is part of the evaluation process, and that needs to be in a method that's not gameable, as many of the systems are now. And that fundamental shift where we're demanding that the decision is based on whole life value, including carbon, and we all talk about it, we've got to actually just do it now. As Matt says, this is immediate. And in 20 minutes time, going into the opening session of our master's program, with a large number of people from all over the world, senior young leaders in the industry, and that's what we're coming up with is let's have a solution that we give to clients, not just talking about it. And I invite anyone on this call and the panel here who've got a lot of experience to come and join us on that journey.
Do you think that's something we need more of, more collaboration between researchers that, you know, can really promote the future modern methods of construction, and then individuals such as yourself, which have all this experience? So Riyadh brings in his experience from Amana, and David and yourself, Professor. Do you think that's what we need more of, you know, an industry that talks to each other? Because maybe that's what's missing at the moment.
Oh, absolutely. One of the real lessons, 10 years ago, I went on a tour around China at major construction projects. I'm a bridge engineer. And it was really fascinating to see on all of the big projects, all of the major players and contractors and clients were linked into usually a local university and doing things together. And the one lesson I've learned in the last 10 years with our partnership with Laing O'Rourke has been the power and the strength of working closely with industry. And it's not just with one contractor. We work across the board now, despite having a perception of the sort of ivory tower university stuck in the clouds. I would argue we're one of the most linked into industry and government of any university in the construction sector in the world. And it's that close partnership that's just brought power. We can provide the, you know, the bright thing, the blue skies and getting the evidence base, and they bring the practicalities. So absolutely, I would encourage every contractor and consultant to form a strategic link with whatever university they like. I'd love them to come to us, but their local university, and that provides that symbiosis which will really make a difference. And we as an industry need to do that. The way that the pharmaceutical industry does, the way that the electronic industry does, they've got to realise that investing in research and universities is not a cost, it is actually an investment in the future.
Right. Riyadh, I have a question here that I believe you might be able to answer. We have a viewer asking, now that we have tower cranes capable of lifting 330 tons at a 15-meter radius, is the size of modularization or offsite pre-assembly limited by the transport to site constraints?
Yeah, absolutely, yes. I mean, depending on the weight and dimensions of the modules, that's so if the modules were in steel or in timber, it's one thing. But for example, I'll give you two examples. DoBox, our platform for concrete modular units right now, we have a crawler crane, 200-ton crawler crane on site to construct, and we've constructed up to ground plus 5 floors. But DoPod, where the bathrooms are coming out fully in pods, bathrooms and kitchens and future products as well, those require a regular tower crane to put them in place. So I'm sure our experience with DoBox currently is different, for example, from Matt's experience in the UK with different materials for the modular construction. But it's absolutely a function of the logistics, both the transportation and the lifting that's available at site.
Right.
I'll
Okay.
Matt if he wants to touch on the UK's experience.
Yeah, we are finding ourselves lifting heavier elements for sure, but the crane industry seems to be more than ample and able to live up to that challenge. So you know, we don't see any concerns around that. I think it comes back to you're trying to industrialize the process and the products. You know, so it's a massive logistics play. We talk about needing to be more like the automotive industry, really. You know, how do you get just-in-time working across a construction project? It's all about sequencing. You know, when you're stacking sub-assemblies, components, products, you need to make sure they're there at the right time, so they go in at the right order, etc. And it's really requiring us to think differently as a contractor. You know, it's not the... application of lean is absolute. You know, you need to understand value stream mapping, you need to be able to sequence, you need to be able to push and pull, plan, and be much more agile. But it's exciting, and everyone that works on our projects where we're pushing this unilaterally say, I'm not going back to the old ways. I do not want to work on a traditional construction project. I've been involved in something that's unique and feels like a step forward, and I don't want to go backwards. And that's the kind of spirit that I think we're all trying to unlock within the industry.
And that's a very good point Matthew brings up, because the social aspect of it. So because you're shifting the work from a difficult bespoke construction site to a manufacturing, or a lot of it to a manufacturing environment, you're able to attract better local talent, or even train up the local talent in order to add value to the process, versus having to possibly import that talent from different parts of the world. We're seeing that certainly in Saudi Arabia and the UAE. It's much easier to attract people to work in a factory environment than a construction site.
Yeah,
because that's a really key point. Again, we found when we were looking at this, trying to understand the benefits of offsite or construction, and you know, we all measure these top-level metrics, but actually, as you get down and look at the social wider benefits and community benefits, they absolutely appear to dwarf the others from the actual impact on the quality of life, which we're all aiming to achieve. And if we can capture those, that will really transform the perception of both clients and industry and what we're doing. And one of the eye-openers for me was, there are a number of academics around the world talking about this and work in the field, but there's very little in the way of how do we capture that in other than a qualitative way. And it's a really interesting challenge. But then we see the benefits Riyadh's talking about. And you've got a factory with a stable workforce that goes home at night to a stable home environment where the kids go to school, and they're buying in the local shops, rather than this itinerant workforce working from place to place, from severe environment. It transforms the life of the whole of our workforce. Huge issue.
Yep. We have just in 5.
Also, one more point to add here, please. So also this will it has a different impact on markets where there's a shortage on labor. So when it comes to modular, there's an opportunity actually to automate, use robotics, maybe not to the full extent, but at least you can utilize those in a controlled environment. So this also might be a solution where you have certain markets with shortage of labor as well.
2 weeks' time, no one's going to be allowed in the UK from what we hear, so we better come up with something quickly, I think.
Right. Just under 5 minutes, and I have one final question that I believe David might be in a good place to answer. David, we have a viewer asking, how does the Agile planning process affect modular construction in both a good way and bad? Now, I believe they're referring to flexibility in terms of designs and schedules, and how that would translate onto the final modular product.
So, I'm sorry, I didn't catch the beginning of that. How will what affect them?
How would the Agile planning process affect modular construction in both a good way and bad?
Okay, so that's a really big question. So we're certainly, well, we're using Agile planning in a number of different ways. So for example, us as a team, and so with the work that I'm doing, we're using Agile planning to with like how we're creating our products, when I mean products as in our platform, so how we're doing our offsite manufacturing, our digital twin. So we're using that through the team in order to create this like smart destination. We're also seeing it being used through design and construction. So we're using some lean design processes to create integrated design management plan or integrated design management process, using technology to do that. And through that, we're starting to use some pull planning techniques as well. I suppose the interesting piece is, and it sort of goes back to, I think it was Wissam's question around the freezing of design, because we're bringing people together in a different way, and we're collaborating in a different way. We're able to. It makes it easier to use, say, Agile planning techniques because we've sort of started to break down some of those more traditional ways of working, the traditional contracts, and we're able to get the right people into the room at the same time and accelerate some of these processes. It'll be interesting to see how that works in construction. Haven't sort of seen that happen yet in our construction phase so much, but certainly through the design phase, it has been, it has made quite an impact. But it does come down to as I say, that convergence of the different technologies and the collaboration that we're seeing between the different parties in the value chain.
All right. I'm being told we're just about out of time. I cannot believe it's been an hour. I think this is the kind of topic we could dedicate an entire day to and still find ourselves needing more time to discuss. But on behalf of MEED, I'd like to thank all the panelists for making time to talk today. We are all walking away with some exceptional insights, and I'm sure everything you've said will guide the discussion around modular construction in the MENA region next year. So thank you very much for making time for us. Have a nice day. Thank you.